was my childhood passion, and I'd been an aero modeler since I was 7. And in many ways, I consider myself to be a child of DRDO and HL. We have to remember an aircraft and a spacecraft are crafted, and that's why there's craft in the word aircraft. So we find these children of painters, sculptors, weavers, basket makers, and we take these children when they're around 15 or 16, and for 3 years they're trained and certified to become aerospace workers. So in Bangalore you've got entrepreneur, engineer and craftsman. In UK we have materials
and robots,
machinery and money. This is actually taught as a case study at IIM Bangalore and IIM Ahmedabad.
Yeah. Today everybody wants to be a defense manufacturing company. Is it that easy?
The two biggest things you need to bring to this business is patience and passion.
So who came up with the names Cheel and Kaatil?
Well,
and there's Patang as well.
Patang is persistent. It's a tethered drone, which you can use for surveillance. The Cheel is an eagle, and then you see our Kaatil, which is an assassin. We also have a few other birds coming which have Sanskrit and Indian names. So drones are a tremendous, their time has come. Ukraine singularly has become a superpower of drones. They're making about 150,000 drones every month now. So there's a lot of technology that's developing on the battlefield.
Let's talk about the Tejas, which you've been involved with as well.
Right.
I mean, you had the Air Force Chief go on record to say, look, I'm getting frustrated with the pace of delivery.
You can't blame HL alone. It's the whole system. If somebody wants to go out and buy coffee for the year, give a contract, it'll probably take them more time than in Dynamatic we take to decide on a big machine worth 20 crore rupees.
Hello and welcome to the Young Turks Reloaded podcast. I'm Shereen Bhan. We're coming to you from Bengaluru. We're very close to the Bengaluru airport. So through the course of this podcast, you are probably going to hear aircraft whizzing past us. But that's also important because that's really the story we're going to tell you about here on the podcast today. If you've been reading the news and watching headlines, then you know that Make in India in defense and aerospace is the buzzword. It's the big theme today. We're seeing stock markets rewarding companies in this space. But what's important to note is that this is not an easy business to get into, and it's certainly not a business that can get you a quick buck or two. To really understand where we are in the Make in India story, where we are possibly headed, what the opportunities are, but more importantly, what the constraints are that we need to contend and cope with, is a man who spent the last 4 decades, starting at 20 in this space, joining us today on Young Turks. Toby, many thanks for joining us here on the Young Turks podcast. It's a pleasure to have you back on the show. As I said, 40 years now here at Dynamatic. Everyone's talking about Make in India in defense. Everyone's talking about the aerospace opportunity. I want to understand from you, where are we today? Is this the big breakout moment that you believe we could be sitting on, or do you believe that there's more hype than reality?
Well, when we started, we were Dynamatic Hydraulics Limited was a company that made hydraulic products for tractors, agricultural tractors, bulldozers, drill rigs, cranes. Pretty boring markets, but very high precision products because we were pumping oil at 3,000 to 4,000 pounds per square inch. So very highly engineered safety products. And in the early 90s, in a garage behind the pump plant, we started a little garage with a little board on it saying Dynamatic Aerospace. 2 or 3 things. One is it was my childhood passion, and I'd been an aero modeler.
Since the time that you were 7,
Since I was 7. And the second was being in Bangalore, which is home to DRDO, NAL, HAL.
Yeah.
We had a lot of opportunities to develop, to actually co-develop. We were developmental partners for their R&D divisions, where we did prototyping, tool manufacturing, and the design of the manufacturing engineering itself before these things went into series production. And so we were involved in almost every program through the early 90s and early 2000s. At a certain point, HAL started building the Sukhoi 30.
Yeah.
And roughly 1/6 of the airframe was built by Dynamatic in a plant, and that took us a step up. And in many ways, I consider myself to be a child of DRDO and HAL, which we learned a lot from and we grew. Around 2007, we started working for Airbus, and around 2009, we started working with Boeing Defense. And we rapidly became their global sole source for what we do. So around 850 Airbus aircraft, every A320, 318, 319, 320, 321 and A330, we make the flap track beam assemblies. So we actually have facilities in Bristol and Swindon. Now the wings of all these Airbus aircraft are made in the UK in Broughton. So what we did was we acquired businesses and then grew them, put in complete robotic lines. The raw materials which were sourced in Europe were machined at our facilities with robots. Now, India 15, 18 years ago had interest rates that were 16, 17%. Even now it's 9%. We borrow at 1% there, and we have completely robotic manufacturing of very high precision products at scale. And you're able to continuously run these machines 24 hours, 7 days a week. Now, the beauty of what India offers is very
labor
high
intensive.
quality engineers and craftsmen.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people think of an aircraft as a highly engineered product. But we have to remember an aircraft and a spacecraft are crafted. And that's why there's craft in the word aircraft. And so while it's a highly designed, highly engineered product, it's also highly crafted. And across the world right now, you're seeing generations of craftsmen who were there for maybe the last 60, 70 years retiring. So there's a need for fine craftsmen. And as a company, we've been very involved in supporting craft. So we work with craft communities, 55 Gram Sabhas around us. We take the children of actual artisans who've been working with their hands from the time they were 2 years old. So we find these children of painters, sculptors, weavers, basket makers, toy makers, and we, along with the government, manage a government-owned industrial training institute, ITI Devanhalli, and we take these children when they're around 15 or 16, and for 3 years trained and certified to become aerospace workers. These come into the workforce and they're world-class craftsmen. Now, Bangalore is also home to the largest cohort of global engineers. So in Bangalore, you've got entrepreneur, engineer, and craftsman. In UK, we have materials,
and robots,
machinery, and money. Low cost of capital.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've created a global best value model, and this is actually taught as a case study at IIM Bangalore
Ahmedabad and Bangalore as well.
Ahmedabad.
Yeah.
So, so that's the story in a way of what we've done. If you look at us today, we are a single source for Boeing Defense for their P8 and F-15EX. Now, the F-15EX hasn't been sold in India, so this is not an offset. We are winning business based on Kabiliyat, capability.
And just for the benefit of people who are watching, let's explain what this offset business is, because a lot of the Indian defense manufacturing came about on account of offset obligations. So you're saying this is not an offset.
If you look at what offset means, it means that India buys, let's say, 30 aircraft from Boeing or 50 aircraft from, any of these companies, Dassault, and they put a burden on the seller saying that you will buy from India a certain volume. You'll see a lot of Indian companies going out and selling offset capability that we will produce stuff so you can fulfill your offset obligation.
The mandatory local requirement
Yes.
as part of these
Yes,
contracts.
yes. So, by the way, if our product or production or export ticks that box, that's fine. But that's not what we ever offer. We offer basic, hardcore engineering, uh, design of the manufacturing process, tooling. If you look around us, all the tooling is actually designed and built in Dynamatic. We have capabilities to create manufacturing processes, digitize erstwhile analog processes, and make it really global best of the best. So that's the Kabiliyat part of it.
I want to pick on this Kabiliyat aspect that you spoke of because you make
Yeah.
it sound easy and it's not. It's far from that. What does it take to create a company sitting here in India that becomes a tier 1 supplier to the global best? Today, everybody wants to be a defense manufacturing company. Everybody wants to be an aerospace manufacturing company. Is it that easy?
The two biggest things you need to bring to this business is patience and passion. And if you're chasing money, you're not going to build a very good, valuable business. So if you take what we've done is we are in our heads, we have just built the foundation for a great future. So 2 years ago, we were awarded Boeing Supplier of the Year. That is the best supplier in the world. 3 years ago, we were awarded Airbus's first Global Sustainability Award. We've been Bell Helicopters Best Global Supplier. So for us, these elements of excellence will drive growth. And I think what we've done is in the programs we have and the ability to consistently deliver reliably for over a decade, decade and a half, you have the trust of customers to do bigger things here and bigger programs, which will make everything we've done seem insignificant. And if you see this campus, you see it's scaled for the next level of manufacturing.
So give me a sense of what the next level could be.
Next level would be large fuselage sections. So if you look at all these companies, if you see our latest ramp up that we're doing for Airbus, it is all variants of doors for the latest Airbus aircraft, the A220. So it's very interesting because when we started working for HL, it was a big thing that they were exporting passenger doors to Airbus. We're industrializing right now and we'll start deliveries soon. The passenger doors, the cargo doors, the overwing exit doors, the service doors, and the emergency escape
So
hatches.
all doors
All
on the
variants
Airbus.
of doors for A220. The second thing is, if you look at what we're doing with Dassault, we're developing entire fuselage sections for the world's best business jet, which is the Dassault Falcon 6X. And their volume of production is, for the Falcon, is greater than what they produce, the number of Rafales they produce. And when you look at a Dassault Falcon, you have a 2.5 meter diameter on the tube, on the fuselage, going to 2.8 and 3 meters. A 320, an Airbus 320 and a 737, just 3.5 meters. So once you're reliably delivering Falcon fuselage assemblies, the next step is to go on to commercial.
Let's start by talking about what we're seeing happen globally today. There is a fair amount of flux. Geopolitics is dictating who does business with whom at this point in time. There are all kinds of restrictions being put in place. And the view is that India must now focus much more on its own R&D, on its own sort of design and development from a strategic perspective. Now, as Dynamatics and somebody who's worked closely with HAL and DRDO since your inception, how do you look at that opportunity that's opening up today, the indigenization of the defense industry in India?
That's a great question. If you look at us 30 years ago, we were involved in Indian R&D for India. And then we focused, the volumes just ran away, and it's essentially we're a global business with very little Indian. We are India for the world, make in India for the world.
For the world, yeah.
And the government, the government has really recognized that there's a real value in India, make in India for the world. Looking at the technology denial, the raw material shortages that are developing across the world, and the disaggregation or fracturing of the global supply chain, they're looking at Atma Nirbharta.
Yes.
So we are now coming back, making a whole
Yes.
U-turn back. If you look at us in terms of, we have a small, my new garage, I mean at 59, a new garage, which is called Dynaton. And it's really something very beautiful because we have deep technology. We have developed our own camera systems, our own gimbals, our own autopilots, our own control laws, 5 million lines of code down to the PCB level. I mean, even on the cameras, we just buy the lenses, we build the cameras in house.
Okay.
And based on those subsystems, we develop drones. Now, there must be 500 drone companies in
I
India.
was just going to say
I
that.
mean, if you go to Bangalore, I can throw a stone. I'll actually blindfold myself, throw a stone. I'll hit a drone company. A stone for a drone. But let me
That's a
tell
nice
you,
line.
yeah, new one. But let me tell you, most of these guys just import kits. I mean, they're doing stuff in 2025 that I did when I was 7 years old. I mean, this is not the way to build drones. And if you look at the very large businesses, a lot of them are going in and tying up with some very large global companies, but it's essentially a rebadged global platform. When you look at Atma Nirbharta, it means not just India for Indians, but it should also mean with a very significant amount of Indian brain power.
Yep.
And if you look at our Cheel or our Kaatil, it's a hunter-killer that we've designed, which is quite unique. We have a bird that's persistent. It flies 8 hours. It captures data. It transfers it electronically to the Kaatil. The Kaatil flies in a GPS-denied, radio-denied environment. It cannot be jammed. And it flies with a jet engine. So it's flying at 600 kilometers per hour. It's a mini missile.
So these are essentially drones that you have designed, developed, and are manufacturing here at Dynamatic.
In-house, yes.
In-house.
We have roughly 23% is from strategic partners.
Okay.
For example, we have a very unique engine on the Cheel, which comes from Australia. Now, the platforms are designed so that they can be sold to India and India's allies. So we have 77% indigenous content. Of that 77%, roughly 65% is made in Bangalore within 30 kilometers of us.
So who came up with the names Cheel and Kaatil?
Well,
And there's Patang as well.
Patang is persistent. It's a tethered drone, which you can use for surveillance. And you don't worry because it's electrical. You've got a Jeep with a generator on board. This thing can be up for hours. And then when you're done with your observation post, pull it down and go to the next location. So put it at the borders, put it for crowd management. It's very versatile. The Cheel is an eagle. And then you see our Kaatil, which is an assassin. And they all talk to each other. All of them have electronics developed and designed by us. We also have a few other birds coming which have Sanskrit and Indian names.
For these birds in specific now, what's the procurement plan? I know from conversations that I've had with people in government that post-Operation Sindoor particularly, I think one of the aspects that the government does intend to focus much more on is drone. And the world is now, post-Russia, Ukraine, etc., what we've seen is moved towards, drone warfare. So what do you see as the future for Cheel and Kaatil from an India point of view and from a global point of view as well?
We're a Bangalore-based Indian company that's global. Our products are designed for the world. That's said and done. The first customer, the first solution that we want to build is for our country. But the products aren't designed to just be sold here.
To India or for India.
They're world-class products, world-class technologies, which will be sold all over to friendly nations. The second part of it is the question you asked about the global requirement of drones. What recent military operations have shown all of the world is the efficiency, the sheer capability of drones in causing massive damage, and the bang for the buck. So drones are a tremendous. Their time has come. The second part of it is not just the drones, but the software on it, the AI on the drones. So we actually, when I talked about the Kaatil, the Cheel will give sighting information, targeting information to the Kaatil. The Kaatil then is unstoppable. It's got its own brain. We don't control it.
It's going to change the global dynamics as far as military warfare is concerned. How do you see that? And in the context also of what we're seeing happen in Europe with remilitarization of Europe. I mean, what are we talking about in terms of opportunity?
So Dynamatic operates our own manufacturing facilities in Germany, in UK, and we have a small engineering capability in France. So these are core European countries. We see ourselves as an Indian origin company that works closely with the countries that we're located in. And what is really interesting is that the superpower of drones was China. If you see what has happened, Ukraine singularly has become a superpower of drones. They're making about 150,000 drones every month now. And they are expendable $500 drones that just over the front line, and then they make some very strategic drones as well. So there's a lot of technology that's developing on the battlefield, and Europe is catching up, US is catching up onto these things. I think our old ability, I mean, in 1995 we started working with DRDO AD on the pilotless target aircraft, the Lakshya.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like 30 years later, we're developing drones with all the knowledge that you have in Bangalore today. It's huge. Bangalore is the backbone of Silicon Valley. We have to imagine the capability we have in Bangalore.
But Toby, since we're talking about the road ahead, but you also brought up Lakshya. And I want to ask you this in the context of what we see as a perennial problem. Delays. Forget the procurement delays, but the delays in development and actual manufacturing. Let's talk about the Tejas, which you've been involved with as well. Right. I mean, you had the Air Force chief go on record to say, look, I'm getting frustrated with the pace of delivery. Right. What's the problem?
The Tejas is a really good aircraft. The fact that we are in 2025 struggling to deliver volumes, I think it's a serious issue and it needs much deeper thought. What we need is a process where the government reaches into all of us willing, private sector, globally competent companies. And they need to change the game. They have to stop thinking about manufacturing of fighter jets as something that has to be done in a traditional manner the way it has been done. You can't blame HAL alone. It's the whole system. They have so many constraints. I mean, if somebody wants to go out and buy, let's say, coffee for the year, give a contract, it'll probably take them more time than in Dynamatic we take to decide on a big machine worth 20 crore rupees. Actually, a very dynamic guy in HL who takes quick decisions. Very soon there will be rumors that there's something wrong with that guy. Why is he interested in that decision? It's not HL, it's just pervasive in the public space. We need to have a society built on trust, on handshakes and good process. So you can move fast.
While we're talking about constraints that have...
May I give you an example?
Sure, please.
I'll give an example. If you looked at Indian cricket, we never had that killer mindset that we have today in the past because everybody was focused on not getting out. So they would protect their wicket. And if everybody's protecting the wicket, you can't win. And then you created IPL and we started getting all these youngsters from all over India. And you have this hard-fought, high-tempo game. And suddenly you see India winning globally because these young Indians from all over, new places, new clubs that you never heard of 30 years back, are hitting and aiming for the fences, and they're not worried about getting out because they know in the law of averages, if we swing for the fences and we are skilled and we train enough off the field and the processes are good, they'll deliver the match and bring the cup home. So I think in that sense, if I could use cricket as a metaphor, we need to do that in defense manufacturing in India.
Let's move this beyond India and talk about what's happening globally. Because while you spoke about HAL and the problems and the constraints that it faces here, but even global supply chains are faced with problems. I mean, IATA has pegged the supply backlog at a record high as far as commercial aviation is concerned. I mean, it's a problem for Airbus, it's a problem for Boeing. What's going on there?
So there are three things that work here. Normally in peacetime, you don't have very good sale of military aircraft. You have a focus on commercial jetliners. During wartime, you see commercial flying coming down and defense spending going up. This is perhaps the first time in a century since you've had flight for a century, where both are, you have war going on, you have peace, you have globalization, and you have deglobalization. So you're seeing massive demand on both military and commercial
At the same
time, with a fracturing of the raw material supply chain. You're seeing at the same time, especially heightened by COVID, where a lot of the very skilled craftsmen in the West retired and they haven't been replaced by 20-year-olds who now, you're actually seeing declining populations in richer countries. So you don't have that many young people. You're seeing the right, politics on the right, which is anti-immigration. So everybody is caught between a rock and a hard place. I think India has been very good, and this is what I was coming to. I think India, we have this young cohort. We have 600 million people under the age of 30, and a very aspirational, youthful population available at a lower cost than the rest of the world at this point of time. If we can harness this youth like we are doing here, and we do it at scale, I think India is becoming a very interesting answer, and we are seeing that with all our customers who are beginning to come in a bigger and deeper way to source more and more from India.
So, in order to be able to fulfill that global demand, and you believe that India is uniquely positioned or could be uniquely positioned today, what will it take to create a supply base or tier 1, tier 2 suppliers who are dealing with global OEMs?
We are a tier 1 to all these guys. And what we found was in the past.
And again, to explain to viewers what tier 1 and tier 2 mean.
Okay. So a tier 1 typically assembles everything that just goes straight into the final assembly line, and the aircraft manufacturer just literally
picks
joins
it up and joins it.
And that's it. So that's what we are. So we make our stuff, it goes and it gets directly attached onto the aircraft, becomes a part of the aircraft. Now, a tier 2 would feed a line like ours. In India, why that has taken time to develop is the typical entrepreneurial energy and the need for everybody to compete with each other. So about a year and a half ago, we had a bunch of really good entrepreneurs in Bangalore who are very, very competent. And we got them together and we talked about Bangalore airport. And we cracked a joke. And I said, look, when you see a foreign CEO jump out, before he gets to his own car, 5 taxi drivers grab him and start fighting. So they all laughed. I said, but guess what? That's what the aerospace industry is doing. So we shook hands and we said, we're going to collaborate. And then we got the largest export order in the history of India, which is the A220 doors. It's roughly a 600 million over 10 years. What we did was we worked with Airbus. We worked in consonance with the government's aspiration to create a ecosystem, and we partnered with half a dozen great companies. And we bartered out, we divided and distributed the supply part. So it actually has created a huge harmony.
So when you hear people talk about the fact that this is a breakout moment for India's defense industry, it's a breakout moment for India's aerospace manufacturing industry, the sky is the limit, and so on and so forth. How much of hype versus reality do you actually see?
So there's reality and there's hype, and both are coexistent right now. The hype is in the expectation that everything will happen yesterday. The reality is where it's here to stay. There's a moment where you need a large engineering and craftsman cohort, and we have it in India. You have a large domestic demand, you have a government that wants to build in India for India. At the same time, you've got global demand, there's a shortage of manpower, there's shortage, where also India is a great producer. We have very large aluminum reserves, we've got great steel plants. It's just a matter of certifying these guys. I see a future in the next 24, 36 months where we'll have qualified steel and aluminum and titanium producers in India. And you will see the tier 1, tier 2 structure that we already have, but also the tier 3 and the base metals. And that'll make us into a real force to reckon with.
Speaking of developments, global developments that could potentially impact your future as well as the future of the ecosystem that you were just talking about, bilateral trade deals, the UK India FTA. I mean, you've already been transacting on a zero duty basis for, as you were telling me, for the last 18 years. So it doesn't really impact you. But what does it mean overall for more joint ventures, for more collaboration, for more partnerships, for instance? And we're still, of course, waiting for the India-US deal to happen, but the India-US defense collaboration has deepened.
Yeah, so India-US defense has grown warmer over the last decade and a half. The UK corridor that was established by us first has manufacturing in Swindon and Bristol and manufacturing in Bangalore. We're 1 hour away from Heathrow and we're right next to the Bangalore airport. So we looked at time rather than distance. And we said if we can shorten the amount of time, so we said it's only 10 hours. If we machine out, now you take an aircraft part, you take 100 kilos of raw material. The finished flying part is 8 kilos. Now you're only shipping 8 kilos instead of 100 kilos or 80 kilos instead of a ton. So instead of sending it by sea, we send it by air. So we have shortened the WIP cycle to 9 days. A typical, coming back to HAL or some of these big Indian, the largest Indian companies that ship 1,000 tons by sea, they have to suffer, coming down through the Suez Canal, Somali pirates, monsoon, cyclones, and then ship it back. That's a 90-day WIP cycle. So in our working capital cycle, we removed $25 million just by shortening time. So I think that UK-India corridor that we developed so well with an FTA, with reduction of friction, with reducing rates both ways, with a common intent, can be a massive game changer for not just aerospace, but for everything. And the US already has very strong relationships with India in terms of IT and stuff like that. The question is the tariffs, and that's for them to sort out.
But what does all of this now mean as far as Dynamatic specifically is concerned? The last few years, growth has been on the slower side. You believe that you've managed to rewire the organization significantly. Today, aerospace is almost 43% of your revenue. What could that number look like in the foreseeable future? What could growth look like for you in the foreseeable future?
So I think if you look at what we've done, is we've taken a business, and on the surface it looks very similar because it's still called Dynamatic Technologies Limited. Nothing's changed. The brand is the same. But if you look under the hood, a decade ago, your aerospace sales was maybe 5% of sales. Now it's almost 50% of sales. So you've transformed your business. If you look at our business in Europe, We have an aerospace, hydraulic, and automotive business that mirrored what we had in India. We divested of our automotive business in India over the last few years, looking at the electrification of industry. But the German foundry we have is one of the world's best foundries. We retain that because we see that segueing very easily into aerospace and defense. And it's very well located in what will be the fastest growing defense market in the world.
Today you call yourself an entrepreneur in residence. Does that give you the flexibility and the freedom to let your imagination run wild?
Well, I'll tell you something. We have offices in Germany, in UK, in India. Whenever you visit me, you'll see I'll be in a conference room. Actually, it's the boardroom of the company in these places. In 39 years, I don't have a cabin of my own. And the whole idea is that I see myself as I spend a lot of time in the labs, on the shop floor, and traveling between businesses. So I've never felt the need to actually have an office. And a boardroom is used 6 times a year. So it's a great empty space to be more efficiently used. And if you look at the organizational structure, it's a professionally run business, it's entrepreneur led. And entrepreneur led has been me as an individual. And you see now my daughter has joined the business. The whole idea is to continue with the idea of being professionally run but entrepreneur led. So we'll all age out at some stage. You need to have a continuous strand, a turn of the wheel. And so there will always be somebody who's got skin in the game as an entrepreneur to take some risk, to continue with those relationships.
Yeah.
The business is professionally run, but entrepreneurs, they take risk, and when a decision is tied, the entrepreneur breaks that tie and says, okay, we go this
When
way.
did you, which was the riskiest tie that you broke as an entrepreneur?
I think it's almost continuous, so I can't pick anything because it's all scale at a time. I mean, the fact that that little garage, people used to laugh at me when they had a what was a little shed at the back of a hydraulic plant with some sign out there saying Dynamatic Aerospace. To them, it was like a joke.
One aspect that I want to talk to you about, because again, this is something that's been capturing mind space and headlines, is safety. I mean, we've had unfortunate incidents, and it's been a tough year for aviation globally as well, and the focus is very squarely on safety.
Yes.
As a supplier, I would imagine that that's the cornerstone for you. I mean, it's a cornerstone for the OEM, but it has to be a cornerstone for a supplier as well. I mean, how have you built for safety, and what does it take to actually do that?
So again, it comes back to process, it comes back to skill, it comes back to the traceability, the continuous, trust but test. So if you look at everything we produce has written documents with signatures and stamps from beginning to end, from the suppliers through our process to the customer. And then what we've done is we've also created QR codes continuously. So the process is not only verified by hand in the document that travels with the product, but is also constantly picked up digitally and is monitored. Now, the people are skilled. You have a skill matrix. Over 2,000 people have their skill constantly tested. So we have a lot of sports in our company, and you'll find trophy cases across our factory. Some of them are for cricket, some of them for soccer, volleyball, kabaddi, but also for quality and productivity. And we have 48 teams. So you have a very collegial level all the way down to the ground, where people work in a sportsman-like manner with Corinthian values of a sportsman. So if a worker makes a mistake, they never hide it. They, they've been given that trusted space where they stop the work and they say, hey, this is what it looks like. and we either take it away or we have a documented plan to use the material, rectify it. So, first it starts with the behaviors that you have. So, nothing is hidden. That's very important. The second is the process that you apply to it. And the third is the constant skilling that you have for your people.
You know, I was looking at that. You've got a whiteboard there which says Continual Improvement Gallery, and it's got your awards and recognition, on it. And to my mind, and this is something that I work with, excellence is about daily improvement,
Yes.
bringing daily improvement to the workplace. And how do you just gave me an example of how you build that mindset,
Yeah.
but how do you scale that mindset?
So, it's great questions you're asking, Shireen. So, I'll tell you something. 3 or 4 years ago, we started sending our guys and gals on these things to the National Quality Circle. It's like firstly, local, we won all golds. And finally, at the national level, 6 teams, all six won gold. Last 2 years, we sent 2 teams globally for the World Quality Olympics.
There's a World Quality
Yeah,
Olympics.
these are quality federation championships. 2 years in a row, both our teams won gold. So it's interesting. 5 years ago, the teams that dominated quality in India and globally were teams largely from automotive companies. And for the first time, we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years, we are starting to dominate this. A large part of it is the Corinthian values, the skilling, and the process. The other part of it is, I think, raw material. The people we have, as I mentioned right in the beginning, are children of craftsmen. They come from a craft culture. So they are uniquely gifted from childhood to focus on their work and work with the mind, eye, and hand and the heart to make it really well. Now, what we've done is we've polished and honed those skills.
You know, you talked about the women on the workforce, and I've seen a lot of them here in this facility as I've been walking around. How many women are working for you in Dynamatics today?
So it would have been, there was a time I remember it was really embarrassing. I had a lady visit us 20 odd years ago in a facility in Chennai, automotive factory, and she wanted to go to the restroom, and there were no ladies because we had no women in that factory, zero. I was like, what's wrong? And then one guy went, they cleaned up the gents' toilet, and she went in, then somebody standing guard outside where she used the toilet. And I said to myself, there's something wrong. So the next building we built, we made 50% female toilets. And people were like, we have no women. I said, no, we have to design for women.
Yeah.
And it starts with everything. The toilet, every process has to be respectful and welcoming of a diverse population. Today we have some of our best engineers. Our head of methods is a lovely lady. She was an engineer, joined us 22 years ago. They're going to be a very strong cohort of women. Under 30, I would say it'll be 50-50.
50-50 under
At the
30.
engineer level.
But I also want to talk to you about, and again, it's the complexity of the business. I mean, you've made it sound simple, but there's a fair amount of complexity in this business as well. What does it take to put a door together for Airbus, for instance? I mean, how many parts are we talking about? Just to give people a visual reference of how this is done.
So if you take the A330 flap track beam, there'll be about 300 parts, and there'll be 1400, between 12 and 1400 rivets based on which beam it is. So if you include the rivets, you're talking about an order of 1800 interventions on the assembly and parts and bill of material. So it's complex. Now on the doors, which are even bigger, we're doing something quite unique. In September, we are launching the first article inspection, FAI. This will be maybe the first FAI in the world, which will be FAI plus AI. We're developing a tool with a startup, a very fine set of people who we know very well.
Bangalore based, I would imagine.
Bangalore and US. It'll be the first article inspection which a human will inspect, and then AI will inspect, trained camera AI systems will inspect, and you'll have two reports, one human, one AI at the same time. So it's a maker checker. You're actually checking the checker now. So you'll have a maker, checker, and an AI checker of the checker. So what it does is it brings two things. It brings greater rigor
Yeah.
in the process, but it also then creates a digital. Now, there's so much talk about what happened on the Dreamliner that crashed.
Yeah.
And people are saying, why are we even speculating? Why wasn't there a little video camera? And then you'd know if the guy switched it off, didn't switch it off, something went wrong. Sometimes our processes are written 25, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Today, the world is so digital. You can compress time, and you can add um, rigor and the guarantee of the data just by digitizing it.
You know, over the next few years, in terms of profitability, in terms of revenue, and in terms of debt, what should shareholders expect?
In an inflationary country like India, when you look at asset creation, debt has to be serviced, but debt that you pay is actually not what you're paying, because when you create high quality assets, the assets are inflating. It's just that the way your balance sheet is structured, it doesn't capture that. So if you take an ambition, you're building very large sections of an aeroplane. If tomorrow the opportunity presents itself to build a helicopter or a small aircraft, when I say small, a regional or a business aircraft or a fighter aircraft, we actually have runway access right here, and we have runway access at another of our sites onto a military air force base, where we have another 100 acres of land. So these assets are opportunities for the future. The capabilities that you've created in terms of engineering and craftsmanship are opportunities for the future. The reputation that you've got over 3 decades in the aerospace industry, you can't build it tomorrow. As I said, this business doesn't need just capital. It needs a Kabiliyat. It needs an ability to understand this business, to to have perseverance and patience and passion. And not every capitalist has that. I mean, it's a capital intensive business, but it's a tough business. I mean, it's a perfectionist business.
So let me end by asking you, what's the dream for Dynamatics?
So the dream for Dynamatic has always been, in an entrepreneurial company, um, we stamp our own dreams onto the organizations, and sometimes the organizations don't build that capability around a dream. In this case, as a 59-year-old knocking on 60, I can say the entire capability, Kabiliyat, the people, the passion has wrapped itself around that dream, which is what? Excellence, to be really extraordinary in what we do, to be highly design oriented, the ability to redesign, to think, to imagine, and to create new products like we've done here, to globalize and be globally relevant and not just a fish in a little pond and feel very happy I'm the best in India, but to be really truly world class. And finally, to build complete systems. And the complete system could be an unmanned or it could be a small manned system.
Next 5 years, 10 years, a
This
possibility?
decade, a decade ahead. This decade. The thing that is going to help us is that the national ambition 30 years ago was never like that. Today it is. And the national ambition driven from the government in the center, at the states, the investing community, the public in India, everything is aligned around the idea that India must now make. And if India must make, you need Kabiliyat. If you've got Kabiliyat, you've got to look around and say, where is that Kabiliyat? So I think we're in a fairly good place.
Well, we hope that you continue to build on the Kabiliyat, and thanks very much for sharing with us a very interesting perspective on where the Make in India story is for defense and aerospace. Toby, we wish you and your team at Dynamatic the very best of luck. Appreciate your time here today on the podcast. Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of the Young Turks podcast. If you did enjoy watching this conversation, send us your feedback. If you heard all the planes above us, that's only because we're right next to the Bangalore airport at Dynamatics, bringing you the story of Make in India.